Well, Skippy and I are at the park. You can just about see her back there in the car. And I want to talk today about The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. This was a book that sort of a carryover for me from Booktubeathon 2018. It was the book I chose for a beautiful spine. Actually, even more so, it should be the beautiful cover. Absolutely gorgeous. This is a book that came out in England in 2016. The US got it in 2017, and I'm finally getting to it in 2018. This book received a lot of hype when it came out, and very deservedly so. So let's talk about it. So the book is a Victorian novel set in the late 1890s, and it starts out in London where we meet Cora Seaborn, our main character. She's recently widowed, and she's now finding sort of a newfound freedom away from this abusive relationship she's been in, and forced to be a woman of a different character than she really is. This is really sort of like a feminist novel. She's very headstrong. Once you get to meet this character, you really get to love her. She's just totally herself, traipsing around the countryside in her man coat and her boots, not caring if she gets muddy, not dressing as the widow as she's expected to be. Anyway, she has a fascination with natural history and fossils, and she takes that interest out to the Essex countryside where she hears rumors about a serpent, some giant serpent, apparently rumored to have carried off humans, and she's fascinated by it and sets off in search of some proof of its existence. And there, when she gets to the countryside, she travels with her young autistic son Francis, also a very interesting character. I love the way his character was portrayed within the book. But once she's out there in search of fossils or some sort of proof, she runs into the local minister, William Ransom. A kind of a funny first meeting, you might say, but it creates quite a bond, a friendship between the two that will later develop a little bit more beyond the levels of friendship. It gets a bit complicated, his being married, both of them with children. But I love the relationship between these two characters within the book. Anyway, they set out to try and find more information on this particular serpent. One to prove of its existence, one to disprove it, because the local minister is kind of fed up with his community kind of believing in the existence of this creature. In fact, it's even a little symbol of it carved into one of the pews within the church. So it's sort of interesting, a kind of a rivalry between the two, but on a friendly nature, as the story goes. Like I said, one to prove its existence, one to disprove it. There's lots of other characters within the story. A doctor that comes into play who has interest in Cora. You meet William Ransom's wife and children, and the interactions between all these characters. It was just fascinating. I was very drawn into it within the countryside, and you just felt like you were kind of traipsing through the mud with Cora in her explorations of the creature. The book is also has several like letters within the book, and I like that because you got a really good insight within the characters. Usually the letters were between Cora and William, and it was really touching, especially when there was a bit of a divide, a bit of separation within our friendship because of an incident that takes place, and just kind of really getting a feel for those characters within those letters. I really liked the way that those were interspersed within the book. Yeah, I was really captivated by the novel. It still sticks with me, and I almost want to like reread it the moment I put it down. I definitely recommend it. I hate that I waited so long to read it, but I'm glad I finally got around to finishing it, and it was thoroughly enjoyable. Highly recommend it. Another book I finished was the audiobook of The Winter Garden by Kristen. Prior to this particular book, the only other book I've read by her was The Nightingale, and that was a wonderful book. One of my top 10s, I believe, the year I read it. But both books have kind of parallel plot lines to a certain extent. At least they both center around sisters. You have the older sister, family, married, and kind of the more responsible of the two sisters. And then you have the younger sister, kind of free, roaming all over the place, kind of more ambitious, more headstrong. And both stories feature sort of a rift between the two sisters for various reasons. Both set kind of a focus on a war. Oh, the Nightingale was set during the war, whereas the Winter Garden is focused on memories surrounding a war. In this case, a war that their mother experienced and a secret that she holds. And that secret that sort of kept her at a very distant relationship with her daughters. She never really shows very much affection towards them. They're very close to their father. And when just before their father passes away, he asks them to kind of keep the family together, to listen to the stories that she tells. She always used to tell them like folk tales and things like that when they were younger, and then a certain incident happened where then she stopped. She refused to tell them these stories anymore, but there's some sort of secret that these stories hold, and as she starts to tell the tale, you start to learn more about her character. And I like the way her background and everything is revealed through these stories, and how the sisters get to really know their mother for the first time. I thought it was beautifully told, and I highly recommend it. So I've been participating in the Daphne du Maurier project, which is a reading project started by Ange over at Beyond the Pages. There's a Goodreads group that you can join, and what we're doing is every month we're reading Daphne du Maurier novel, and we're reading them in the chronological order in which they were released. So I believe we're on book 3 now, which was Julius, and it's all based on a character named Julius, who we meet as a young boy, right? I think it's on the cusp of like the Franco-Prussian War, and he's pretty poor. I mean, he scrounges around and finds a way to make money, and this is something that you see with this character throughout the novel, starting out from a very poor person to being like one of the richest people around. He has a very strong head sense for business, even as a young kid. He's very scrappy, very conniving. He can convince people to do anything, to buy anything. He starts out from like stealing things in the market and selling them on the street corner. Definitely has a gift for gab in order to convince people that what he's selling is better than what they're selling on the market. You get better value, but he has a way of making something from nothing. That's a theme that kind of goes throughout the book, a phrase that he constantly uses. He makes something from nothing. But he's not a likable character. At first I felt, some compassion for him. He's doing what he needs to survive. But you see a quite strong selfishness within this character as the story continues. It's all about him, regardless of anything. If it's something that he owns, if he can't keep it, no one else can have it. And there's quite a horrific event that takes place quite early in the book as he's still a young kid. And I was quite shocked by it. And this is something that, as you see this in the beginning, you get a feel for what that character is going to be like as the story progresses and he gets older. He has this way of treating people as possessions, from the women in his life to the daughter. It's a strong focus on jealousy within this book. And yeah, he's just a really despicable character, but the story was intriguing. It still kept me going to want to know what was going to happen with this man. Yeah, it was great. I really enjoy her writing. I haven't really. There are some slow moments within, I think, the previous book and this one a little bit too, but it still wasn't enough to make me want to stop. I kept wanting to just know what was gonna happen with this character. And it was quite shocking. I gotta tell you, she can write. I'd read anything she wrote. She could write the phone book and I would read it. I'm looking forward to just exploring more and more books with this author. I think the next one up is Jamaica Inn. I've not read that. I know they've made I think a movie on it too, so I might check that out. But if you're interested, if you've read Rebecca and you really enjoyed that, check out some of her other works. I mean, she wrote this particular book when she was like in her early 20s, and it just has so much depth to it for someone so young at that time. That yeah, it's just fantastic. Definitely pick up some of her other books if you really enjoyed Rebecca or My Cousin Rachel. You'll find some really great gems that you've not probably heard of. So check them out. The last book I recently finished was Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut, which I listened to as an audio book, and it was read by James Franco. He did an okay job. Sometimes his voice is a little bit monotone, but I think it fit well with the kind of feel of the book anyway. This is sort of a somewhat autobiographical book by Vonnegut about his experiences during the war, during the bombing of Dresden, and he is sort of the narrator that pops up within the book in like 3 or 4 instances, but he's not the main focus of the book. He's not the main character. Slaughterhouse 5 is basically an anti-war novel. There aren't any really pro-novels, but it's often described that way, and it has a narrator telling you the story who does appear at the beginning, like the first chapter and the last chapter, and then at least once or twice within the book as a character, as one of the fellow prisoners of a main character named Billy Pilgrim. He's the focus of the book, and we watch as this character is sort of trying to deal with events during the war, the horrors that he saw being present during the bombing of Dresden, where he and his fellow prisoners were being held captive in a building formerly used as a slaughterhouse, named Slaughterhouse 5, hence the title of the book. They were deep underground when the bombing took place, and when they came up, they were required to like clean up the bodies and clean up the area and stuff. The book is sort of described in a non-linear format because Billy Pilgrim kind of claims that he was abducted at one point in his life by aliens, and now he's kind of thrown back and forth in time. He might be lying in a hospital and suddenly he's somewhere else, and then he might return back to that location. So it's very strange the way the story is told. I'm trying to remember the name of the aliens. Were they pteroleptils or something? It was a really bizarre name that I keep forgetting. But anyway, what we have is these aliens. They describe the world as like everything that takes place has always happened, always will happen, and nothing will change that, and so it goes. So this "and so it goes" phrase keeps popping up within the book. Every time someone dies, in the narrator will refer to that incident, and the phrase "and so it goes" pops up at the end. So talking about like when Billy Pilgrim's wife passes away, and so it goes. It did get somewhat annoying at sometimes, and sometimes it had a bit of a rhythm to it. So it was unusual how I felt about that kind of repetitive thing. But I thought the story was really interestingly told. It's a book that sort of like had to sit and ruminate in my head for quite a while as I thought about it more afterwards. First I wasn't sure I liked it, and then the more it kind of grew on me, the more I understood more about the story. And it's also sort of a person dealing with, you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, and how his mind is trying to handle it, and how it's creating this scenario of these aliens. So as he's sort of lost in his mind, he's also lost in time, and he's trying to kind of bring all these to make it make sense, to make the horrors of war make sense. And I just thought it was a really interesting book. It makes me want to read a little bit more about it and see what I think about his other work. So I think I'll probably try Cat's Cradle sometime soon next. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a really good reading experience. What do you think, Skippy? Time to leave? We done at the park? Okay. Well, anyway, that's my reading update so far. I was planning on joining ShakeTube 2018, which is a abbreviated version of it, coming up in September, but I think I'm going to pass on it. I really enjoyed it the previous year, although it was really long and intensive commitment. It was 15 weeks last year. This year it's only like a 4-week commitment with 3 different hosts. Each one, though, is choosing a different play per week, and I don't really like that format. One host is doing complete rereads, and then another host has, out of his 4 weeks, 2 of them are rereads that we did the previous year, and it's a little too soon for me to want to do rereads when there's other plays I haven't read yet. But then the first 2 weeks, there's like an overlap. There's plays on both. 2 different hosts have plays that I'm interested in, but I think I'm just going to pass on it this year, and I want to focus on a different read-along. Tome Infinity and Beyond is more of a sci-fi read-along. I haven't read any sci-fi in a while. I think that might be kind of fun to do that, so I think I'm going to switch gears and take on that challenge instead. And plus with the Daphne du Maurier project, I still have a lot of reading commitments kind of going on. I don't want to juggle a whole bunch at once and feel like it's turning into a job of reading, you know. So I'm going to pass on Shake Tube. So right now I'm finishing up Picnic at Hanging Rock by Joanna Lindsay. That is also a read-along hosted by Ange at Beyond the Pages. It's an Australian classic, and I'm really enjoying that. I saw the movie already, the movie version by Peter Weir, which was really good, and the book and novel, the book and the movie really are a good parallel. I think they did a really good adaptation of it. And then I'm getting ready to read the next Daphne du Maurier book, which will be Jamaica Inn. So that's my reading update. Hope you guys enjoyed this sort of outdoor vloggy kind of version. Hope the camera wasn't too shaky or the wind noise too bad, but I'll see you in editing, I guess. So I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye-bye. What are you doing down there? Anyway.